The title is New Museology in China with 3 case studies. My name is Kon-Young Kim. I am a co-organizer of the ICOM UK Student and Emerging Professionals Working Group, and I am your host of today's webinar. I am a PhD student in Heritage Studies at the University of Cambridge. This is an event organized by ICOM UK Student and Emerging Professional Working Group. Our group is a platform under ICOM UK, and our group aims at bringing people from museums and cultural studies together, sharing ideas, and reshaping the border of museum industry. We organize events and talks on a regular basis to share your thoughts, give your voices, make connections, and create cooperation. This is our 3rd museum talk of this year. Thank you for those who are joining us again. If you'd like to know more about our group and the upcoming events, please visit our website. My colleague Robert, who is the representative of Students and Emerging Professional Working Group, will post a link in the chat box. Also, please note that this is a temporary website before the ICOM UK adds a new section on the official website for the Students and Emerging Professional Group under their websites. So I am very happy today that we are joined by Muliang. Before he gives us a talk, I would like to briefly introduce Muliang. Muliang is a PhD candidate at Peking University in China. He's based in School of Archaeology and Museology. His research interest includes the relationship between archaeology, cultural heritage, and contemporary studies, contemporary society. In particular, he is committed to pushing archaeology into the wider public in China by opening up public's imagination of archaeology and cultural heritage studies. He is originally trained as an archaeologist, and later during his postgraduate studies, he initiated a few public archaeology projects in China, which are absolutely fantastic. I'm also following his WeChat page. He's the founder of Dig What. In Chinese, it's called Wa Sha Ne, an online platform for archaeology and museology collaboration. The platform gained constant popularity in both archaeologist community and general public in China. So to briefly introduce his previous work, in 2020, he established the exhibition brand called Not Too Important Yet. In Chinese, it's 还没太重要, which follows the new museology approaches in China. This is an exhibition brand that focuses on history and contemporary heritage around us. His recent curatorial work includes Our Home, 我们的家, which was held in 2021 in Beijing in China. He also held an online exhibition called Our Beijing 2008, 我们的北京, which was held in 2022 in Beijing. And also finally, the exhibition is entitled As Us, which just finished last month. Today, Muliang will give us a talk about practicing new museology in China. He will firstly introduce about general museum landscape in China, followed by his practices, including 3 case studies, which are 3 independent exhibitions he created since 2021. To be honest, I'm personally very excited to listen to his talk today, because I also studied in China and I learned a little bit about museum and heritage system in China. So back by then, when I was studying in China, these kind of alternative exhibitions or independent exhibitions are very limited. So I'm very excited to learn about, especially about the difficulties and backstage stories from him. Now, before we start, I have a few housekeeping notes. The entire session will be organized in 3 sections, as some of you have joined us many times before. The entire session will last for 90 minutes in total. Our speaker will give a presentation for about 20 minutes to 30 minutes or so. And during the talk, if you have any questions, please feel free to turn off the camera and use the chat box to put the questions. And after the talk, we will have a Q&A session based on the presentation. Yeah, and in this time, if you have any questions, we prefer for this talk you type your question in the chat box, and alternatively, you can use the raise your hand button on top and ask questions directly. And after that Q&A session, which is about 20 or 30 minutes, we will have an open discussion. And this open discussion will be more of a general sharing time for everyone who would like to raise questions or comments about general museum practice, heritage, or independent exhibitions, or any questions related to museum practices. I have a final reminder. This is our 9th museum talk, and this is our very first time to invite a speaker who is actually based in Asian side. And in this way, we hope to open up our platform by welcoming participants from more diverse backgrounds. And therefore, I would like to ask for your kind attention in terms of language issues. So when posing questions and during the discussions, it would be much appreciated if you could slightly slow down your words or simply just type your questions into the chat box. In the meantime, I'll try my best to help with communications. I hope you enjoyed the session. Now, Muliang, the floor is yours. Please start when you are ready and feel free to share your screen now.
Thanks. So, yeah, can you see my screen or not?
Yes, I can see your screen. We see a poster and your title. I think you can start now.
Okay, thanks so much. Hello, everyone. It is my great honor to get today's invitation to share with you about the current situation of museums industry in China, as well as some of our recent attempts of expansion in the direction of new museology. As we all know that museums are an invention of Western countries. It has been introduced to China for more than 100 years. After the efforts of Chinese museum industry practitioners, the latest statistics, statistics show that there are more than 6,565 museums in this country, 6,500, and 34,000 exhibitions were held in 2022. And the museums received 578 million visitors, 500 million visitors. So it can be said that museums are playing an increasingly important role in China at present, especially in the past like 10 years, during to President Xi Jinping has attached great import, has attached great importance to museums. Like the photo on the left, just on June 2nd, he visited the Chinese Archaeological Museum. So not only the official emphasizes, visiting museums has become an increasingly popular activity among the general public in recent years. So like the picture on the right, for example, the Palace Museum, one of the most famous museums in China, has become a very difficult place to buy tickets. So therefore, in summary, many practitioners in Chinese museum industry call this moment, the golden age of Chinese museums. So in that way, if we compare Chinese museums with Western museums, besides the differences in collections and contents, what are the other differences between Chinese museums in terms of in terms of operation or philosophy with Western museums? What can we find between these Chinese or Western museums. I have a experience of a short-term tour in the UK about 10 years ago. I visited the famous museums in the UK, such as the British Museum, the British National Gallery, and the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford. If you compare those museums with Chinese museums, such as the National Museum of China, just like the photo on the left, or Shanghai Museum or other museums, you will find that the differences between Western museums, the museums in the UK, between Chinese museums, the differences between them are actually less than the same. Chinese museums can now also make good exhibitions in terms of both content or form design. But perhaps the differences between Chinese museums and Western museums is more reflect in the aspects of possibility. That is to say, the majority of museums in China are more or less similar. For Chinese museum practitioners, innovation of museums is not the most important topic in my point of view. This is related to the special history of Chinese museums. After the founding of the People's Republic of China in 1949, the museum system of the nation learned from the Soviet museum, a Soviet model. The idea of the Soviet model is that from the nation to each province to each city, museums will be established to display the history and folk customs and even natural resources of this region. Although the current Chinese museum industry no longer explicitly learn from Soviet model, it still determines the understanding of the concept of museums by the general public and even some museum practitioners. In other words, many Chinese believe that the main function of museums is to introduce the history and the archaeology and archaeological situation of the region which the museum is located. On the other hand, China is indeed a country with a very long history and many wonderful cultural heritage, which makes many museums in China are very attractive. National treasures, like the picture I show on the right, national treasures of cultural heritage are just like stars, and exhibitions are like movies in which the stars participate. So the movie is close to success when the stars show themselves to the public. So therefore, in China, the history presented by museums is the absolute focus of attention. In recent years, this situation has been particularly emphasized. That is to say, the great cultural heritage in museums should be used to show the greatness of Chinese history. Just like this photo on the right, it is an exhibition poster of the Past Museum. Its name is in Chinese 何以中国, which means what is China. The exhibition is full of star Chinese cultural heritage. But to rethink about the museum itself, including what exhibits to present, how to present exhibits, and why to present these exhibits are questions that only a small number of Chinese pay attention to. So in fact, The rethinking on the museum itself is exactly what is emphasized in the concept of new museology, which is now widely known in museology. Chinese museology scholars actually noticed this academic phenomenon at the end of the last century, and since that it can be clearly observed that scholars are promoting the emergence of some new museology-style museums in China, such as eco-museums, community museums, etc. The photo on the left is the book, The New Museology, and it is the Chinese version of it. So the scholars noticed that and study it for a long time, and even they try to make some examples of new museology, like the photo on the right. It is a community museum in Beijing. Uh, it is called in Chinese 石家胡同博物馆, which means a museum located in the center of the city. And you know, 胡同 means the very small or little roads in the old city of Beijing, and 史家胡同 is one of that small community, and it has a community community museum, which is a very famous one in the museology scholars study. But looking back, it may be said that the influence of new museology of in China, the influence of new museology in China's museum industry is still limited. Not only that, the number of these new museums is still small, but also the museum practitioners who clearly demonstrate the thinking and methods of new museology are far from the mainstream. Moreover, whether the Chinese scholars have more or less misinterpreted the compass, misinterpreted the concept of new museology is also a question worth thinking about. So, in short, in the current Chinese museum industry, I think the new museology has not been very successful. So, in that background, next, as a young Chinese scholar of cultural heritage, I will introduce why I'm practicing new museology and what attempts I have made. I'm currently a doctoral candidate in cultural heritage at the School of Archaeology and Museology of Peking University. I have been in the background of archaeology, museology, and cultural heritage since I was an undergraduate student at Peking University since 2010. And that's me when I was an undergraduate student, and we went to the archaeological sites for half a year, and that's the photo of me digging for the archaeological sites. While I was studying for a master's grade, I began to pay attention to the relationship between archaeology, museums, cultural heritage, and these things with the general public. Not only did I conduct the academic research, but I also participate in a lot of practical work for the public, such as, just like King said, such as running my own self media with the theme of archaeology and cultural heritage, and participating in the production of variety shows on archaeology and the cultural heritage on national TV. Just like the photo on the right, it is a TV show on national TV called The National Treasure, and it is a successful TV show and with a wide audience. And I'm the consultant for this TV show. So over time, I began to think about why archaeology and cultural heritage should be open to public. And my thoughts began to move closer to the postmodern academic direction. A very specific example is that when popularizing archaeology and cultural heritage knowledge to the public, we always emphasize that a certain kind of cultural heritage is very outstanding or very important. Sometimes the public will completely follow our introduction, but sometimes they may not agree with us at all. This made me realize that the crux of this problem. So, who decides what is important and what is not? How was it decided? And furthermore, I began to pay attention to the knowledge and the power issues surrounding archaeology and cultural heritage, which gave me a new view on the current archaeology and the cultural history industry in China, including the museum issues we are talking about. So I wanted to do something different and even maybe change the industry a little. For example, just what I'm going to talk to you, what I'm going to introduce next, the three uh, trilogy 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 exhibitions we made in the past 3 years. Our first exhibition was held in 2021 called Our Home. And it was an exhibition held in the apartment where my wife and I actually lived. We lived in this room for a year. Because the apartment is located in the central area of the city, so the city is Beijing. So although the size of the room is a little bit small, we still had a wonderful and unforgettable time here. Until the end of the year in this room, we adopt a stray kitten, and we tried our best to rescue it, but it still failed to survive safely. So this sad thing made us decide to move out of this room. Before moving, we decided to select 10 items in this room, including items about the kitten and us exhibits to show to the visitors. Our opening method is to send invitations to relevants and friends. So each interpretation show was basically for one or two people. Me myself would give a 1 hour interpretation to the visitors in each show. So the show was to let the visitors to experience these 10 exhibits in this room, such as eating the delicious food that we often ate, bought from bought from around. Maybe you can see this. So that's the kit. That's the room of our house. Yeah, such as eating the delicious food, what we often ate, brought from abroad, bought from around, and playing Switch games we often played in this room, and watching the wedding photos. Watching the wedding photos we took during this year. And finally, watching a video. The video is this one.
I think, excuse me, I think your screen is frozen. Can you try to unshare the screen and share it again? Because I am seeing the...
Can you see the website?
Yes, but
You
no
can see the
video,
website.
no website.
Okay. Let me try another. So you can see the website now.
Yes, yes, I
Yeah.
see your browsers.
Sorry, my
Let me
apologies.
see.
Yeah. Uh, there there are more photos of this exhibition. That's the our home. And just like what I said, the kitten and the video. Yeah, it is a sad video, so I'm not going to show you the whole one. That's what I said, the food we often bought around. We will invite the visitors to eat, and we will share our music. This music is what my wife loves. It is from the Queens. And we will share Switch games. And at last, we will share that video. Oh, that's the photo of our wedding. And at last, we will show the visitors the video. So it can be seen that the exhibition was the beginning of our attention to the history around us and the contemporary heritage. If national treasures are very important to every Chinese, why can't our home, which is very important to me, be the exhibit of an exhibition? I think I have found a proper combination of new museology, museology, muse- museological theory and self-expression by the exhibition through the exhibition our home. And that is to take my stories and myself as the first case. The second exhibition was an online exhibition produced before the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympic Games called Our Beijing 2008. In 2008, Beijing hosted the Summer Olympic Games, which was a big event for Beijing and even for the whole country at that time. So also in that year, 2008, a severe earthquake occurred in Sichuan, China. So these major events made that year a milestone year in national memory. And 40 years later, Beijing would host the Olympic Games again. So the official propaganda often talked about the great development of the country in the past 40 years. But what did these 40 years mean to ordinary people? We searched for 9 interviewees from all walks of life and invited them to take our car, went to the unforgettable place related to his own 2008, and we filmed the drive, and finally published it on the internet, displayed the location and the drive videos of these 9 people as the content of this exhibition. Among them was a reporter. That's the online exhibition. You can see our co-worker made fantastic cartoon pictures of all the 9 interviewees and their memory locations, just like 9 exhibits. And among these interviewees, there was a reporter who still works in the same magazine building, that building on the screen. She reported on the site of the earthquake in 2008, and she told us about that memory in this magazine company building. And another person is this one. This guy stood in front of the brand new building, but it was difficult for him to find out which room he rehearsed his stage play in 2008. The last interviewee is this one, a bookstore owner. He took us to the edge of Beijing city, only to find that his bookstore had been razed to the ground, leaving only alone. This is his video.
因为有遗忘才记忆才有价值，是吧？如果什么都记得住，就没意思了。
This is the drive to his remember location, and we can find nothing here.
当年的法头可跟现在可能就没有任何的一样的地方。18年以后。
It is a 5-minute video, so I can just show you the beginning of it. So if we say that the exhibition the exhibition Our Home corresponds to the museum and explores how to tell the stories of movable cultural heritage, then the exhibition Our Beijing 2008 focus on those immovable cultural heritage, but they are not ancient palaces or ancient temples. They're just memory locations of ordinary people themselves, and they are still worth remembering for themselves. And the last one is this year, we held the third exhibition Us, which is the exhibition we showed in the poster of this talk. The exhibition invites 64 exhibitors from 1 year old, 2 years old, and so on, and to 60 years old, and more than 60 years old, more than 17 years old, more than 80 years old, and more than 90 years old. Each exhibitor provide an item that can reflect the hope of their current age. The exhibits which showed on the poster, and you can see this GIF, is our old exhibits. The exhibits are displayed on a chessboard-like stand. It has a metaphor of chess in this exhibition. So in exhibition Us, we expand our topic the history around us and the contemporary heritage. That is our topic to a larger scope by looking for exhibitors from different ages and actually telling the story of everyone's life. At the same time, the theme of the exhibit, hope, is future oriented. In fact, it is, but I think, in fact, it is the same as the theme of memory we discussed in the previous two exhibitions. I think whether it is about the past or about the future, it is all about the present. So the 64 exhibitors with different stories actually show us 64 different specific and real Chinese stories. For example, the exhibits of 1-year-old children, you can see it on this photo. It is in front of all other items. The exhibits of 1-year-old children are obtained from a traditional Chinese folk custom named grabbing on 1 years old. This kind of folk custom encourages children who can speak to grab at random among many objects. And Chinese people think that what the child grabs indicates the direction of the children's future life. What this 1-year-old exhibitor grabbed is this child. What this 1-year-old exhibitor grabbed were a scale, a seal, and a writing brush, which stand for to be a businessman, an officer, and a scholar. And the exhibitor aged more than 90 years old, our last exhibitor is this one. He provided a commemorative medal for 50 years as a member of the Communist Party of China. Communist Party of China. As an old man who has witnessed the modern history of China, he hopes that other young party members. Wait a second, sorry. He hopes that other young party members can also serve the people. That's his medal. I will wrap it up. Okay. So in fact, we know that in the postmodern context, it is no longer a very avant-garde behavior to turn the story and the cultural heritage of ordinary people into objects of gaze. Sorry, my apologies. It is no longer a very avant-garde behavior to turn stories and the cultural heritage of ordinary people into objects of gates in postmodern context. And I think this should be the exhibitions, just like what new museology should have done. But in China's current museum industry, these exhibitions still have become very special behaviors that can hardly even be regarded as museum exhibitions, because as I said earlier, museums now in China can basically be equal to places that showcase the great history of China. So sometimes I have to call our exhibitions performance art so that others can understand us. This has actually led to our confusion, and I would like to take this opportunity to ask all the listeners, do you have similar exhibitions in museums in your country? How does the museum industry in your country view this kind of exhibitions of ordinary people? And more importantly, how to promote the industry and the public to open their imaginations to museums and archaeology and cultural heritage, and to think about why things that seem to be taken for granted are taken for granted. On the other hand, it can also be seen that as a young cultural heritage scholar who is interested in making a differences, I held these exhibitions actually based on very limited opportunities. It can even be said that we are turning difficulties into resources. For example, when we don't have the resources to manage museums exhibition hall as a creator, we do online exhibitions. We use our homes as an exhibition hall, or we use a museum-like space in a cultural park. And more importantly, I think the exhibition should be regarded as a kind of creation in which the creator's unique expression is conveyed. But in fact, that is not easy in the China's museum industry now, unless scholars with very outstanding academic status can stand up and talk about his own creatorial ideas. Generally speaking, Chinese museums deliberately downplay the expression of any certain person. Even the role of creator does not have as much discourse power in China as it does in the West. But I think that the 21st century is the age of museum creators. The visitors should begin to realize that visiting museums is not only about looking at cultural heritage, but also about watching creators' expressions. So this is also the pursuit of our creatorial brand, not so important yet. The history around us and the contemporary heritage are only the main topics we pay attention to. More importantly, I hope to change the public's view of museums with my clear and creative expression, and even maybe we can change the way the public to the change the way the public see this world. So that's all for my speaking. Thanks all for listening, and apologies again for that noise. Back to the host.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, and it was fantastic. I enjoyed it very much. Just yes, yes.
That's great. Yeah, I can see your face now. Thank you again for sharing your fantastic exhibitions, and it's so interesting that you share the food with your guest in your first exhibition. I feel like that kind of non-visual or non-audio experience in an exhibition or display is kind of taking quite a big part, and by offering their food and sharing the food with the guests, I'm sure they had a really kind of unique experience in visiting your exhibition. I'm sure there are many questions from the audience today. I just look at where our audience coming from, and also thank you for asking the questions by the end of your by the end of your presentation. I was going to ask the same question. Yeah, I'm sure there are many questions from our audience today. So if you would like to pose any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat box or press the raise your hand button so that we can ask you to unmute yourself and pose your questions by yourself. We will be with you soon. Now, before our audience type their questions, I'd like to start with a question. I was wondering how did you talk to the baby participants in your last exhibition? How did you communicate with the 1-year-old co-curator?
We know that we can talk to him. Actually, we cannot talk to the 2 years old the exhibitor. Even we cannot talk very fluently or clearly to the 3 years old children. So we talk to their children's parents. And actually, when you are 1 years old, you cannot express what you want. So we took his items from the grabbing on the 1 years old. But when you are 2 years old, you can express a little bit, maybe by drawing, or that's actually not a painting. That's actually like doodling. You paint random color or things, but we borrow that from the 2 years old parent, and it is his exhibits, and it is very interesting for me, uh, a 30 years old, a 30 years man with no children. I learn a lot from this exhibition, how a baby girl, how you will do at different ages, and if that can answer your question.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, I wondered how did you communicate with your curator? Oh, I saw a question from Robert. Would you like to show? Yes. Oh, yes. Robert,
Go
do you
ahead.
have a
Go ahead,
question?
Farah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh.
Farah, please. Yes, would you like to ask a question, Farah?
Hi.
Hi. Yes.
Can
Yeah.
you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Thank you so much for your presentation. It was very interesting. I'm just wondering about the museums, structures, and organizations in China. I mean, how the museums are run in China. I mean, all of them are run by the government, or no, some of them are run by universities, or do you have private museums in China where they can practice new museology? Because, for example, I'm from Iran, So in Iran, the national museums who run by the government, they are more likely to have the agenda that show the just history of Iran or to just pursue some of the political agenda. But whereas in private museums or in university museums where we have new museology, new museums graduates, they are more likely to practice new museology. So that's my question. Thank you so much.
Actually, there is a statistics made by the government that about 70% of Chinese museums are run by governments, not only by the government of country, maybe the government of a province or the cities or some cities, but they are all run by government, just like what you said. Or not actually governments, but some like maybe most of the university in China are run by governments. So the university museums maybe get included into those kind of categories like the government running museums. And the other 30% of Chinese museums are non-run by government museums. But actually, the majority of these kind of museums, I think the majority, maybe we need to do some more study about that. I think the majority of these kind museums, they are run by some business purpose. Like a businessman, a very rich man, have a lot of treasures, and they want to build a building to store their treasures, and they want to turn his treasure house into a museum. It is a very common phenomenon in China. So this kind of museums cannot conduct like new museology things mostly in most occasions, like they are treasure house. They are not a museology uh, museum. Uh, but just like what you said, that in a small amount of museums that are not run by government, there are opportunities for new museology practice. Like we have a university museum in our school, in our School of Archaeology and Museology of Peking University. It's uh, it held a exhibition of the graduate students' personal items, which connected to the memory of their life in the school. And the creator collect them and made an exhibition to display these kind of items. So it is a very new museology practice uh, we talked about. And maybe in some uh, museums that's not run by the government, or maybe in a few museums that run by government, they do something like just like new museology. Some do it do it a little more, some do it a little less, but they do some a little new museology, like museums in Hangzhou or museums in Shanghai. Maybe you know that they are very rich regions in China. So I think I think when the younger scholars get into this business, and they learn from school about new museology, and they took that knowledge into the museum industry. They will change this industry in the future.
Yes, thank you for the answer. Robert, would you like to unmute yourself and ask question yourself?
Yeah. Hello. Thanks for the wonderful talk, Xi. I was just, I'm very interested, in the point that you talked about at the end, where you said that you wanted to make the exhibitions. I mean, you wanted to let other people see your exhibitions as a kind of performance art, rather than like a museum exhibition in the traditional sense. I was just wondering if you could expand on this, because I'm going to advertise this later to you guys. Our ICOM UK student conference later this year will be a theme on the a kind of new museology. It's called crafting experiences in museum, physical or digital. So I think nowadays, as the museum gets more digitized, and then people would experience the museum collections in a different way, rather than in the traditional sense where they go into the museums to see the real objects. But now, probably it's digital objects or like online exhibitions. So I was wondering, just about this point that you were saying, how are you trying to practice the new museology by letting people, to recognize these exhibitions more as a performance art rather than, a solid physical exhibition itself?
Maybe I can answer your question in these ways. First of all, it is a kind of awkward thing to explain my exhibition as performance art, because ordinary people, especially when in this kind of exhibition, you need to get close to ordinary people. You need to get exhibits from the ordinary people. So you must explain what you're doing. But some ordinary people are not scholar, maybe even not with much knowledge of museum or on other things. So how to explain? So I just think you can take it as performance art. I just do something very strange. Yeah, because in China, ordinary people always think that when a person do something very strange, but he thinks he is doing something very important. He is a performer of performance art. So it is an awkward thing. But on the other side, I want to emphasize is that it is actually just like art, like modern art or like performance art. It is not because the way to show it, to perform it, but the idea to create it. Just like what I just said, I can explain it a little bit more. Just in China, if you go to a museum and you can visit an exhibition, you cannot find out who is the creator in most times, because the exhibition focus on Chinese history most of the time. That's the focus. So no matter who tells you the story, it is the story. But in modern art, in art we talk about in 21st century, we first of all we talk about who made art. It is the art of whose idea, whose expression. But so I think in 2001 century, maybe we can emphasize the idea of the creator's expression. It is your exhibition. It is your idea. It's your point of view of the history, and you share it with the visitors. But it is a little bit hard for the museums industry now, because who can express something? Maybe you are a very outstanding scholar, a very, very outstanding scholar. You can express your idea of the history. You express it in museums that run by governments. Your expression became the government's expression. So if you are a younger scholar, just like us, we cannot express our expression, because our expression cannot become government's expression. We must we must hide ourselves. So how can we do that in this kind of situation? We just can wrap our expression up and call it performance art, call it modern art, so I can express something. But actually, I want to say is expression must express something. And the third point of view is that I'm also a critic for the performance art, for theater art. So that's my another field of academic. Uh, so I think it is a trend for the performance art and exhibition to blend in, because we call it 展演. I do not know how to. Is there a specific word for that kind of theory? Just like if you perform something, you are doing exhibition way. If you exhibit something, you are doing it performance way. So it is there were two things, but now they can be one thing. So I think it is the trend for the performance art and exhibition. Maybe we can find it in the future that they are not, they cannot be separated in the future.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, because I think I agree. I mean, yeah, just to follow up on your answer, I think it's kind of the action of this exhibition plays a more important role than probably what it's exhibiting. The works and the everything. Because just like you said, many people probably that don't fully understand what this exhibition is. What message are you trying to send out? But the the way for you to present it and to let them to see this exhibition, that's probably the message you're trying to send out, rather than to introduce them to each individual works. So yeah, thanks for that.
It was great. Yeah, I kind of agree too that who has the right to choose from the past and do the selection and present to the public, and the combining the performance and the exhibition. That's that's a new approach. I wonder, do you have any kind of trial on combining performance, the theater performance, and museum exhibition at this moment?
Actually, I'm going to, maybe in this year or maybe in next year, I'm going to make some exhibition just like performance arts, because often we think about exhibition, is that a building, and there are some items standing still on the stand for a month, for a season, and the exhibition closed. So that is a very still, very silent activity. But if we can change it into not into a process, into a into a performing process, into a show, into something you do for a time. Maybe that time is for just one day, or maybe for a month or longer. But you do it. Firstly, secondly, and lastly, maybe it is a new idea for exhibition. So I'm trying to think about another strategy about exhibition ideas in the future. It is about the real one and the fake one, because we always think that what we see in the museums are the real ones. But what if they are the fake ones? What if we change it in front of every visitors, that we change the real one into the fake ones, or we change the fake ones into the real ones, and that process is what we are going to exhibit to the visitors, to the audience. That's the exhibition itself. The process is the exhibition. So I'm working on it.
That sounds absolutely fantastic. So it's like it's the participation from the visitors that kind of creates the exhibition itself. That sounds amazing. I was wondering, do we have any more questions? Excuse me, from our audience. I'm sorry that I didn't wasn't very good at keep the timing on. It's now a good time for open discussion. Thank you. Thank you for those who contribute for the Q&A session and for answering the questions, Muliang. Now let's move to the open discussion, the final section of this museum talk. It's a very important section of our meeting, since the this ICOM platform belongs to every one of you. Would anyone like to share any of their ideas or questions, or even you can share your how to say, maybe share your thoughts on the question that our guest, the speakers, posed on at the end of his presentation. Do you know any of the similar practice in your neighborhood or where you are located now, or any nice, good practice that you can think of, would like to share with us? Yes, Farah, would you like to unmute yourself and share with us? Yes, Farah, we are listening.
I was just thinking, I wanted to ask the participant that what is the current exhibition or the museum or display have you recently seen that they have practiced new museology? For example, I live in Scotland right now, but I visited London 1 month ago, and I went to less than 1 month ago, and I went to the Tate Britain, and Tate Britain have recently redisplayed the objects, and also they have renewed the interpretation of the objects. So for me, it was very interesting how they have redisplayed the objects and how they have added the new interpretation. For example, we can see like the theme of colonialism, or we can see the juxtaposition of two great artists such as Francis Bacon and another sculpture. So it's very interesting how they have added interpretation layer by layer. So that was my idea, and I wanted to ask if anyone has seen recently a new museology practice in the UK or wherever they are based. Thank you.
Yeah, just thinking. Yeah, just thinking of that, I mean, I'm trying to think of any exhibitions I have been recently, but you know, suddenly this came into my mind. It was, you know, the famous curator Hans Ulrich Obrist. He, you know, curated, you know, the exhibition in his kitchen. You know, where the kitchen exhibition, he exhibited, you know, the cans and the tins, you know, the condiments and his cooking utensils in his kitchen. And this, you know, links also to Muliang's the home exhibition. Yeah. So I think that, but that, I mean, that's not a new one exactly, but that's kind of similar place on this new museology where, you know, you would just like take in a small place, you know, not exactly a museum, but to showcase this kind of personal experience and you know, to share it to other people and, you know, to have new interpretations.
Oh, that sounds interesting. Displaying a kitchen. Can you maybe type on the chat box about the title of the artist and the exhibition so we can check it? I recently, so I'm in South Korea doing my field work, and my dissertation is about the role of museums in the process of reconciliation, and I'm using the Korean War as a case study. The Korean War means the one that outbroke in 1950, and there was a ceasefire on 1953. And then I am traveling I was traveling to Jeju Island last week, and there is a museum called Suspicious House. How this museum is funded is like it's a fundraised museum. The owner of the house, he was a victim of the nation's atrocity. So he was executed for 7 years during the 40 years ago because of the wrong judgment by the country. And there were many victims like him. And then he decided to speak for himself through the type of exhibition. And how he does it is like he asks the people for fundraising and then collected some kind of money and then turned a house that is called by the neighbors as Suspicious House because that building was referred as a dodgy place or suspicious house because there was someone who was the victim of the atrocity had lived in that kind of house. So that house was not a very lucky place in the neighborhood, but somehow he managed the owner of the current exhibition managed to buy that house and then turn into an exhibition that is kind of very different from the major, I would say, narrative that is advocated by the country. It's telling about the individual's experience in how that person experienced the atrocity and how he fought for this. And that is kind of, yeah, I think it's kind of a small-scale practice on reconciling the past conflict in present society, not through the like ground discourse or in a national museum, but is from the grass that I mean, the fundraise itself is kind of practice that raising awareness of that atrocity. That's the thing I wanted to show. And also, I feel like the name is cute, right? It's kind of warm and it tells something why it's called Suspicious House. It kind of attracts you to go there.
Yeah.
I wonder. Yeah, I see. Don't know, judging from your last name, I feel like our audience is coming from. Oh, sorry, Farah, do you have anything to add on this? Or is it a legacy? Oh, great. So I see a good range of audience. I wonder if there is anyone else from us who'd like to share your experience. It doesn't necessarily have to be a long story. You can just maybe, yeah, joining and say a few words. We would like to hear from you.
I do remember, we had a talk before, where we invited Francesca Curtis, and she's working for a London-based organization called The Line, and the works they do is turning the city into a museum. So they just like exhibit works on the streets of London by the River Thames, and just let people walking by to see that, and then to experience that as a kind of exhibition. But it's a kind of new museology practice, because it's not within a conventional museum wall or gallery wall, but it's just scattered around the city, where you can walk around and experience the city while experience the artwork. So I think that's, yeah, I remember the topic for that talk was museum beyond walls or something. Yeah, so it was from the SNAP event before, but I think that's also one of the practice and the try to just reinterpret the museums and exhibitions and see how they can fit in to places beyond the conventional museum walls. Yeah, I think that's also an interesting example. I'll also type it in the chat.
I wonder, Muliang, did you have a chance to talk to your visitors to your 3 exhibitions, and what are the general kind of feedback from them? What are their thoughts? And
we can find two kinds of people among the visitors. Some of the visitors will will read your introduction of this exhibition, will talk to you, ask for more information about this exhibition, and maybe even they join the exhibition like they are the exhibitors of the 64 or other exhibition. Uh, uh, just what I talked. So this kind of people, I wonder if they just be polite or they are say it from their real heart. They speak highly of this kind of exhibition and think it is really interesting. It is very mind-blowing, things like that. I'm sorry. But other kind of people who visit the exhibition, they are just like normal people. They walk by this room and they take a glance of uh this stand, this exhibits, and they say, what are they? Are they selling things? Are they doing something very strange that we cannot see? So it will be a very interesting thing that if you put a very ordinary item on the stand, like like uh, like a juice box, like a toy, like any ordinary item you can buy from supermarket on the stand, it become something you ask the visitors to look at. At that moment, some visitors, some ordinary visitors, some ordinary people will find it very hard to believe, very hard to understand. They want to find something uh, very meaningful or things like that from the exhibit, but there's not. Maybe, but on the other side, if you put painting, a painting from maybe from a very famous painter like I don't know how to say it in English, like Da Vinci or Van Gogh, just big names in the Western painting history. People will find it very easy to understand, not understand the whole meaning of this painting, but understand why you put it in the museum. You put a painting here, it means you want us to look at that. So it is very clear for all the ordinary people to understand it. So it is complicated.
Thank you so much for sharing. And I really hope that your future work will be more successful. And we look forward to looking for more of your future work. And I think it's a good time to wrap up our today's museum talk. Now, before we end today's talk, Robert has a few announcements related to ICOM UK and our working group. Robert, would you like to share the news and notes for us?
Yeah, hello again. So I'm Robert. I'm also one of the members of our student and emerging professional working group of ICOM UK, and I'm also representing on behalf of our group in the committee. So yeah, just some regular things, another advertisement for our membership. So as you know, our ICOM UK membership is still open for registration until the end of June. So until the 30th of June. So for any of you who still haven't renewed or registered or don't know what the ICOM UK member is, please check out our website where you can find on the ICOM UK's official website. And please, Kyung-Young, can you share the link in the chat? Yeah, so if you click on in there, there's all the information you will find. And another thing is we are currently getting ready and proposing for a student conference. It's going to be like a one-day online conference for students as well as for emerging professionals, and it's organized by our working group and is supervised by ICOM UK. It will be in November this year, and the call for papers will be released very soon, but it's still under investigation from the ICOM UK committee. But once it's released, we will post the news all around, everything that's related to ICOM UK's official website, our student emerging professional website, and our social medias. So please just keep an eye out for that. And if you're interested in the topic, please submit your abstracts and papers. And yeah, we look forward to working with you guys and seeing you in the future. Thank you. Back to you, Kyung-Young.
Great, thank you. It was very nice to see all of you today, and thank you for everyone who posed questions, who participated in discussion. And if you have any questions about our groups or our future event, please send us an email or contact us by our Facebook page. And I'll see you soon in our next event. Thank you all.
Bye-bye. Hope to see you guys in China or
Thank
in
you so
UK.
much for the talk. It was great. I really enjoyed it. Thank you. Thank you, Farah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.